I might be strange, but the first thing that I look for on any dungeon map is the toilet. Failing that, I look for somewhere to sleep. This is not because I'm coming off of a big dinner, but because if there are things living in a location, these signs of life are the most significant tools in making a place feel real, lived in, and fit for purpose. But so often, these crucial steps to justify the existence of a bunch of monsters living in an old fort get left out. Perhaps because we want to build interesting locations, not count bedrolls and chamber pots. Or perhaps it's because it's too difficult to fit the infrastructure for living into that old abandoned keep that you'd love to use as a setting for an adventure. So when I was asked to get involved in this year's Dungeon Jam, an event where a bunch of YouTube creators get together and make a playlist of 5-room dungeons, my first thought was, of course, how can I create an interconnected ecology of predators, prey, resources, food, drink, and waste disposal with 5 different creature types in 5 rooms? Because genuinely, in Dungeons & Dragons, dungeon ecology can be quite easy. And I very much intend to prove that today, while also presenting a damn fun and challenging lore-filled dungeon that you could run tonight. Before that though, I have an argument to make. The reason I feel that dungeon ecology is easier in Dungeons & Dragons than in any other game is because of the vast amount of monsters and magic that can cheat basic resource necessities. Perhaps the broadest category of these are creatures that don't need those basic building blocks of life to continue existing in a place forever. Chiefly undead and constructs. You could populate a room with 50 skeletons or 20,000 terracotta animated soldiers and just leave them there with a reasonable expectation that they'll still be there in a century. Heck, constructs and undead don't even need to breathe, allowing you to flood the environment with water or toxic gases with no consequence either. It's part of the reason why Ancient Crypt is such an enduring dungeon environment, because it's just so easy to make it make sense. The next type of cheat in dungeon ecology design lies in bypassing normal survival challenges. This is slightly different to completely ignoring a survival challenge like golems or skeletons do, and instead relies on magic or monsters that can produce survival necessities or that consume resources that aren't traditionally considered food. The prime example of this is the Otyugh, who gets used in so many of the kind of classic D&D dungeons, especially mega dungeons, due to the simple fact that they can eat anything organic to sustain themselves. Any waste product, anything rotten or poisonous, they're often used as a way to explain where all of the waste biomass generated in a mega dungeon goes to disappear, stopping a mega dungeon or a dungeon generally from filling up with rot or waste or bones. Other examples of creatures like this are rust monsters who eat oxidized ferrous metals, the Zorn who eat gemstones and ores in the earth, clerics and druids who can generate food from magic itself, and magic items like the decanter of endless water or the alchemy jug, although living off mayonnaise does sound tough. Any entity that gets around the normal cycle of resource consumption fits into this category, and can be used to justify the existence of living creatures in an environment not fit for habitation. I'm going to use a couple of these kinds of cheats in my 5-room dungeon. There's also one more kind of creature which is quite uniquely D&D, especially also harking back to earlier editions. Creatures and magic that relies on the adventurer as sustenance. Rust monsters can even count in this way, eating their armour and swords, as can a lot of oozes as well. The way such entities contribute to an ecology is to use the adventurer or occasional lost soul as part of that broad feeding cycle of ecology in the dungeon itself. Whether consuming their armour, feeding their soul to a phylactery, or just pretending to be a treasure chest and eating them. Dungeon-based entities like this make it quite easy to populate a a popular delving spot without too much worry about designing any sort of food chain. We see all of these types of hazards deployed very effectively indeed in Delicious in Dungeon. So go and watch that if you haven't seen it. But I've delayed enough. Let me present you with a 5-room dungeon designed with a fully sustainable ecology. The dungeon was a troll nesting cave 30 years ago when a researcher moved in to study them. To mask his presence from this mating pair of trolls, this researcher carved out some roofs for himself using earth-based magic to transmute the rock into mud, to create himself some rooms from which to observe in the very, very upper portions of the cave, only accessible by flying, really. Despite making these rooms while the trolls were out for the night, the process of clearing out all this newly transmuted mud required the use of a decanter of endless water in his possession, and some specially designed sloped floors to just funnel all that mud out of the newly created rooms. This unfortunately resulted in the entire troll den being flooded with hundreds of cubic feet of mud. Although this did make the trolls slightly suspicious, it took them months to realise that they were actually being observed and eventually climb up to the researcher's observation platform to ambush him, leading to the deaths of the mage and one of the trolls by the mage's own fireball. The final troll, the other half of the mating pair, was, by this combat, pinned under a fallen stalactite, which pinned him to the muddy ground, left with no attention from anything but the bugs that crawled over and ate parts of him as he lay there pinned powerless to remove himself, and yet constantly regenerating. The pinned troll and its insectoid consumers existed in a semi-stasis for some time, with the troll sustaining itself on whatever sturges or bloated insects it could snatch out of the sky or off its body, its regeneration preventing it from dying, as none of the creatures that were consuming it could deal fire or acid damage. It was in this state that a pack of were-rats found the cave system. Interrupting this stasis didn't make too much sense for our were-rats, as they were immune, at least in the 2014 edition, to the troll's reckless swipes and the biting stings of the various insects. Seeing a unique opportunity, our were-rat clan decided to take advantage. Their magically inclined leader began brewing potions of healing, using the blood sacs of sturges as a collection method, and employing some of the were-rats as insect keepers, mostly stamping out the swarms of insects which might be able to damage were-rats with their poison stings as opposed to just actual physical stingers. Also employing some butchers of sturges to separate blood sacs from the sturges safely and turn the rest into were-rat food, and some runners to take their illegal, illicit black market health potions to said black market. So how does all this fit together to make a 5-room dungeon? Well, our first room, it contains the Guardian. We're going literal here. 2 mud mephits guard this first cave, playing with the skulls of the very mage who created them and the troll who shared his demise. These mephits can easily be bribed with food that isn't a bug, basically, that's what they usually eat. Generally, they catch their own bugs that fly in from the horror show that exists in Area 2. At least, that's how the were-rats got these mephits on side anyway, feeding them rich foods from outside, where their runners go and collect seasonings for the sturge meat, and also where the were-rats go and do their business. They do it outside the cave. The mud mephits, well, they produce mud. Enterprising players may gain from these mud mephits, who aren't particularly loyal, information about the were-rats' operation, or the troll's unfortunate situation, but these guardians generally don't care enough to retain much information of use. Beyond these guards, there are 2 paths. One, climbing or flying up to the hidden observation platform, which serves as an entrance to the main sleeping quarters of the were-rats, requiring some light or some extra vision to spot this raised platform up in the corner of the cave. The more normal route takes our adventurers straight into the troll chamber, with air filled with biting and stinging insects, and a halo of bloated sturges surrounding the tortured troll. This room is our puzzle room, but it could easily transition into a setback in the next step of our story structure. If our players have made a fuss of getting here, they will find just the troll and its insectoid consumers. Otherwise, they will find a were-rat in beekeeping attire stamping out swarms of insects that could otherwise jab him and poison him. A were-rat that is very likely to turn into a rat if he notices anyone approaching, fleeing and swimming through the mud into Area 3, leaving the beekeeping suit to kind of creepily collapse in on itself. Players who take the bait, who see the sturges swarming in the air, the insect swarms crawling everywhere, the troll under immense pain and probably morally best to put it out of its misery, players who decide to succumb to the impulse to cast Fireball may turn the puzzle of how to get through this room filled with hostility into a setback. An explosion will alert the were-rat mage, who is ready and willing to cast Dispel Magic on the entire 3-foot deep layer of mud that they have been wading through this whole time, removing the enchantment that turned it from rock into mud, potentially with our player's legs inside. As soon as the mage's familiar gets to this room's observation platform. Players can solve our Room 2 puzzle through violence, of course, by ending the semi-stable insect-based ecosystem, or bypassing it and submerging themselves in mud to try and find the exit. Maybe using the flow of the mud towards the back end of the cave to direct themselves properly. Heading through a not visible tunnel into Area 3, where the river of muddy water runs past a butchery table. No matter which way our players go, the next room involves a setback. Their first encounter properly with the were-rat clan. Either they've expended resources to climb or fly to an observation platform also in Area 2, which connects to the same sleeping quarters, or they've chased our beekeeper through a submerged tunnel, but either way they'll be facing 2 or 3 were-rats at once. Nonetheless, even following this combat, which is not easy for a level 5 party for which this dungeon is designed, they'll be facing one more opponent in Area 4. The were-rat mage, potentially, if you're feeling mean, reinforced by his were-rat clanmates that haven't been taken out yet. This is the former hideaway of the researcher, equipped with bed, oven which vents into Area 2, and a host of potion-making tools, hooked up to the decanter of endless water found by the were-rats on the body of this mage who originally set everything up. This is a classic boss battle, but with a mage who also has were-rat abilities. And honestly, this invites a tough fight, especially if players have used up big resources like fireballs already in potentially a way that has gotten them no further and stuck them in the mud, as it were. But a victory of this kind promises loot, black market potions of healing, the decanter, and even the researcher's notes on how he perhaps made the mud methods, or, if you're feeling very brave, on how he transmuted rock to mud. But we've only had 4 of those 5 crucial 5-room dungeon storytelling elements. A guardian at the entrance, followed by a puzzle, and a setback as soon as the were-rats become aware of our character's presence, followed by a boss fight. Our last step could well be the reward, looting those resources in the boss room. We need a twist or a revelation in my mind to lead into something more. So here are some ideas, and there's some in the document which is linked down below in the description and hopefully the pinned comment as well. There should be a PDF, you'll be able to download it. It's not pretty, but it's functional, and you can read and run the adventure tonight. Perhaps tortured troll blood isn't as stable a chemical ingredient as the were-rats thought. Maybe those sturges in Area 2 have inherited the troll's regeneration trait, and after the troll dies, they've left this area to hunt. Perhaps these black market potions of healing have similar issues to the ones who drink them. I did design a troll's blood healing potion, which is also in that document down below, that gives you the entire dungeon for free as part of Dungeon Jam. Maybe one of the were-rats is actually away selling potions right now. Or perhaps the sleeping were-rats in Area 5 or the butcher in Area 3 managed to flee and escape if the party takes one of the two routes to the boss battle and they hear the boss battle going poorly for their side. If they're fleeing from Area 5, they can even just jump, swan dive off of the observation platform into the mud because they're immune to bludgeoning damage. Again, in the 2014 version. Or maybe, just maybe, the improvised insect jar that is this troll's corpse has produced something truly horrific. A new breed of insect just waiting for its rivals to be slaughtered. So a cockroach that can come back from the dead that's going to cannibalize everything else. It's immune to fire, perhaps. Or maybe a powerful crime lord is pissed as his supply of cheap health potions is just gone now. But I hope that's given you some ideas. You can get the whole 5-room dungeon in the description of this video, and make sure to check out many more creators' takes on the 5-room dungeon premise in the playlist that is active this entire week. It's going to be active beyond. You can catch up on everything, and if you're catching up from somewhere else. Oh, and by the way, if you're confused that I said at the start that there were 5 different monster types in this dungeon, and I've only included elementals, beasts, a giant, and 2 monstrosities, sturges and were-rats, both technically monstrosities. First, lichens should really be their own category anyway, not monstrosities. And secondly, the were-rat mage, he's got a familiar called Tommy. He's a rat, and familiars are technically fae or celestials. So there you go. 5 rooms, 5 different creature types, living in a perfect harmony until your players come to mess everything up. But with all that said, well, not perfect for the troll, I guess. No, it's pretty horrific for the troll. Anyway, with all that said, I've been Tom, otherwise known as the Grungeonmaster. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.